Resist the temptation to overlook the bad for the Carolina Panthers because it was slightly better after the first two drives. I understand there is a strong temptation to go, if you take away the two turnovers, it was a good game. If you take away the two turnovers, Bryce threw for a career high in yards. There was something going on there. Now, while I'll admit, I suppose it's better if the only two options are to continue being horrendous or to get slightly better. It's better to be the one that got slightly better, but you can't really, in football or in life or in any situation, just ignore the big mistakes because a big part of the game is avoiding the big blunders. A big part of the game is avoiding the turnovers in the shadow of your own red zone. In the shadow of your own goal line. It's avoiding the panic. Oh, no, here you go, bad plays. And that, you just can't do it, right? Imagine a pitcher going, aside from those 4 home runs I gave up, I just shut them down. It's like, yeah, you pitched 5 innings and gave up 5 runs. You're not getting it done. Yeah, but it was really just 5 bad pitches.
It's the old Jeff Bisdelic Wake Forest.
Exactly.
Hey, I take away that long 38-0 run or whatever it was, and we played him even.
It's you just can't do it. You have to take the entirety of the equation, entirety of the variables into the equation. And then the coaching staff. The reason I'm bringing up the coaching staff is something happens once, all right, maybe the players didn't get it. Something happens twice, all right, maybe the players, forgot. It happens so often. They're not ready to play at the jump. And it doesn't appear as if they're getting the most out of their players, which is literally what a coach's job is. Now, I know you might be brought into front office decisions, but in college, coach recruits, coach coaches, right? So you are in charge of the Jimmies and the Joes and the X's and the O's. In the pros, you have this front office. You have this scouting department. It's their job to bring in the players. The value a coach brings is getting the most out of those players. It's seeing what they do well and accentuating that. I'm not seeing that for the Panthers. I'm not seeing someone that is being brought about better, is being showcased in a way where I'm going, wow, I didn't realize they were that good. Usually it's I can see they're good despite the fact of how they're being used. Or they look terrible and they're not being helped out. It wasn't an easy situation once they put themselves in that hole. Okay? You're climbing out of that hole and having to storm back, it's not easy. But there are certain, common sense level things that I would have liked to have seen. For example, Xavier Legette wasn't producing. Okay, and I'm the type of psycho that went back and watched every target from multiple angles, fast forward, slow motion of Xavier Legette today. And I came away with a bit of the desired temptation, again, to do but, right? All right, he had 8 targets. He had -2 yards. That is the worst, literal worst stat line for somebody with 8 targets that played wide receiver or tight end. He's only the second player, I believe, since these stats have been traced, to have at least 8 targets and finish with negative receiving yards. Jamal Charles was the only other one. He had -6. So if you take out running backs, Xavier Lee gets alone at the top or bottom, however you want to look at it. Now, you could say, 3-4 of those targets were completely uncatchable. 2 of them, he was well covered and the ball probably shouldn't have gone there. The other 2, probably not great play calls. But if your play calling continues to put it in a situation where the guy that has done historically little with his previous targets, and you're on the drive that could potentially win the game, and you're looking at him multiple times, doesn't that scream a little common sense issue? Doesn't that scream a little, that's not where that should go? Meanwhile, you do have other guys that were effective in the game. From the high production and high volume of someone like Tepper and McMillan to the low volume but still pretty good production of someone like Bryce and Tremaine. Hunter Renfrow, in certain situations, I think could have been targeted. Not the jump balls and go balls that they were throwing to Renfrow on that final drive.
Yeah, that's not his game.
It's not. And he's not being put in a situation to succeed. If you're going Renfrow, go to a Renfrow route. If you're going McMillan, go to a McMillan route. And not. I mean, it's not like there's one of them. You can mix them up, but it wasn't an easy situation. But it's not an easy situation, even if you're doing the things that your players do well. It's nearly impossible if you're asking your players to win those situations while doing what they don't do well. What's the saying, right? Or it's a little drawing, right? Where like a fish will grow their entire lives thinking they're an idiot if you judge them by their ability to climb trees, right? That's kind of what's happening there. It's like, oh, Renfrow couldn't make the play on the final drive. Were you throwing him deep balls, jump balls? Yeah. He's going to think he didn't do a good job there because you judged a fish by its ability to climb trees. That's not what he does. Leggett is not right now somebody that is going to get open with a crisply run route, which, by the way, we knew coming out of the draft he wasn't somebody that was going to win with a crisply run route. And the hope was he would learn that over time while you're able to treat him as the maybe a slightly more receiver version of a Deebo Samuel, right? Where you're getting him the ball in space on easy catches and he's going from there. But they didn't do that.
They tried early on a couple plays, a little screen and an end around, but that was on the second drive of the game. That was it. The screen, there was nothing doing there. The end around, there was nothing doing there. I don't blame him for those plays not working. Unless you just require him to be a superhero there and shake off a bunch of tackles. And by the way, like if I'm trying to think of an example, like if Percy Harvin back in the day, right? If this team was doing a really good job of stopping his gadget plays, guess what they had to do? Not give it to Percy Harvin because the gadget plays weren't working. And he's 1,000 times better than Xavier Leggett. I'm just thinking of guys off the top of my head. The coaching staff has to get the most out of their roster, and right now it's either Tepper and McMillan feeling inevitable and thriving despite some of the calls, or it's guys that aren't being asked to do what they do best. Frustrating game. I got all the way out. They clawed me back in, only to knock me out once again on that final drive. Yeah, their 2-minute drill stinks.
2-minute, and also just the awareness of the 2-minute drill. You could with the clock situation and how much time was remaining and the players you had, you could have darn near done a nice leisurely stroll down the field. There was no need for all these forced chunk plays. You could have checked it down 100 times and gotten to field goal range.
0 completions on that final.
0 completions, a fumble that was called back on a penalty that had no impact on the fumble. You were aided. The reason you only even got to 0 for 6 is because you got a couple of drive-extending defensive penalties. It was a really
mess.
When they took over, I went, if they throw a game winner to McMillan, I'm back, baby. I'm going to pretend like I didn't say all those mean things that I said. I'm going to jokingly say, like, I didn't mean any of it. I'm just going to move on. And then they just beat me over the head with bad decisions, and I went, nope, never mind. Everything I said, I stand by it. I was ready.